Hello, and welcome to our Q&A with Rebecca Kramer Fiscal. I'm so happy to have Rebecca here today. And this is our first Q&A of 2025 with more to come. This is exciting to kick off our year with having her to be able to come and talk to our community. Now, Rebecca was with us once before in September of 2022. So it was a little while ago, and she brought a wealth of insights and knowledge for us, and it was very helpful. And we wanted to have her back to revisit some of that and dive a little deeper. Her book is called Let Them Move, and it is why it's essential students get more movement in schools and how to integrate more movement into the classroom for greater learning outcomes. But not just for school, she'll also talk about in the context of parents and home and just movement in general, why it's important, and especially why it's important to our highly intuitive kids to manage for grounding and their energetic overload and just processing that energy. So welcome, Rebecca. We're so glad to have you here. And I'm going to let her tell you, she's a wealth of information and knowledge. I'm going to let her give her a little introduction, a little more background so you can get to know her. And then we'll dive into just connecting and learning and, gathering bits of information that can help us along the way. So Rebecca, welcome.
Thank you so much, Ellen, for that lovely introduction. It's so nice to be here and to be able to share information from my book and from my experience as an educator and an occupational therapist. So just a little bit about me. As a child, I was very much of an empath, an intuitive kid, and I also was very much of a kinesthetic learner, which I think most kids probably are, but that was my predominant way of learning. And schools were not, and to this day are not set up in such a way to really honor any of those aspects of a child. So I was very enthusiastic learner, and somewhere along the way, I definitely got the message that I wasn't very smart, that there was something wrong with me. And I wasn't grounded in what the system was asking of me very specifically. And so I shut down in a lot of ways. And I clearly was smart enough to figure out the system because I did just fine the rest of my schooling years. I ended up, getting 2 master's degrees, one in education, one in occupational therapy. I did fine. But to this day, I still struggle with that feeling of there is something wrong with me, that I don't have what it takes to, what society needs and wants. And I think that was squashed within me. And so it's really my passion to work with teachers, parents, children, to help them understand that we all come in different ways. We all have so many different gifts, and that, I feel like, my big PSA is that for the last few decades, we as an educational institution have very much focused on curriculum, a very specific curriculum, and that this is what kids need to be functional individuals in society, that this curriculum that's like this, and that the way we make sure that that curriculum gets delivered is by standardized testing and making teachers accountable. And so the teachers are in this kind of pressure cooker of this is what you have to do. And they're trying to fulfill that role. I did that as a teacher. I tried every day to fulfill the role of teaching the curriculum because I knew I'd be measured on that. The kids would be measured on that. And at the same time, I was doing this whole other thing where I would see the kids and I would see their gifts and I would see the beauty and the genius in each child. And I would try to offer whatever that child needed to blossom and grow, whatever that was. And I burnt myself out as a teacher. I actually had to leave because it was too much, and I wasn't just going to give in to this other way of just teaching kids through this lens of this small box. I really feel like we need to be looking at the children coming into our classroom, seeing what gifts they bring, seeing the genius in each child, and then fostering the tools and the skills and the knowledge they need based on that. That to me would be the ideal educational setting. It certainly would have been a different trajectory for me. My experience and my self-perception and, understanding my own gifts, because it's taken me 50 years to come around and be like, oh, maybe I do have some things to offer. Oh, I am an intuitive person. Oh, I'm really good at holding space. That's what I did a lot of as a child. I held space for others. Um, so I it was my last year as a teacher that I had one of my students had his mother was a pediatric occupational therapist, and I had a lot going on in that classroom that year, and she came in and she said, would you like me to do some workshops with your kids to kind of just help them figure out how to function better in your classroom? I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. So she came in and she really taught them and me to honor what was happening, their internal engine, how they were feeling, to be really self-reflective, to be self-advocates for what was going on inside their little bodies, and getting what they needed. And a lot of it was movement, because it's, that was first grade. They just intrinsically, they need to move. And then taught all these wonderful ways of incorporating movement. And that just sent me on my trajectory of, okay, this is a good time to really leave teaching and to pursue a degree as an occupational therapist. And since then, I've worked in the school systems, and I've worked in private practice also with kids. And it's been so exciting to be able to, come at working with children from this angle, and also inspiring teachers to look at the kids differently and be able to present more movement for the kids in the classroom. And it was during the pandemic that I actually wrote the book. I had a little more time, and it was just incredible when I would see the kids. It was all virtual and they were in their homes. The kids were getting less movement during the pandemic than they were in school, because literally, like, some of these kids, the amount of movement they got was walking from their bedroom to the kitchen to the bathroom and back to their bedroom for the Zoom. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. We need to, I really should write a book for parents too. I think it's time. So, that's a little background about me and my journey. The book itself, it's the first half of the book is basically why kids need movement, like what is going on, just historically, what's going on in this day and age. We've got so many kids with ADHD diagnoses and anxiety, depression, all these things, and movement is a big aspect of that. And then just like understanding just how the brain and body works together, just the whole chemistry of it, how, and for learning to take place, we have to move our bodies. It's this whole sensory system that requires physical engagement in the world, um, and particularly for kids. And then the second half of the book is just like all, very, it's pretty simplified, straightforward interventions, things that teachers can have kids be doing, to teach them to get the movement they need in their classrooms. I I know as a teacher it's overwhelming. It's a lot to try anything new. So I didn't, I could have gone way more in depth, and that's something I could do at some point too. But this was like, here's some basic movement patterns that really get the brain fired up, that don't take long to do, that you could have the kids do, and also just some basic ideas of how do you incorporate more movement into the curriculum, and how do you incorporate movement just by taking care of the classroom through classroom jobs or through transitions, because we have gazillions of transitions all day, from moving from one place to another. There's lots of ways to get additional input during those times. So that's kind of how the book is structured. So
Well, and that's beautiful, Rebecca. I love that you've taken this on. And when I first read Rebecca's book, and it just blew me away because as you know, setting up this highly intuitive kids group, and just the way it was written, you could just tell it was written, I feel, for like the intuitive child, for all children. But I just saw such a fit on how it could help because so many of the kids who have this heightened sensitivity, and they experience energy in a different way that a lot of times it is moving it. It's like processing it out. So I felt there was such a fit on this. So I love what you said, Rebecca, about doing something for parents because it's not only just for children. I get, you have a lot of sensitive adults and empathic adults that don't realize that movement will help them as well. So how can you, this is written for the schools in the school environment, but how does this translate? Can you share a little bit of what parents can do to help for home? Because I love what you said about during the pandemic, kids weren't getting much movement even at home, and that's important. So can you
Right.
talk a little bit about that for how this could apply to the parents?
Sure. Well, the number one thing is we are in a world of screens, and there's that's a good and a bad thing. All in moderation. It's a part of our world, and it's not like I want to take screens out of kids' lives completely, but I think we have become so reliant on screens to entertain our kids, and and it's addictive for them. So limiting screen time would be one thing that I would definitely recommend, and recognizing that everything, and I tell this to teachers too, everything a child does, every action, every behavior, misbehavior, whatever you want to call it, is the child basically expressing a need for something. They're showing you that there's something going on within them that they need to do, and it could be a positive thing or it could be something viewed as negative as far as behavior. And so again, looking at the child a little differently. Okay, there's a need going on, particularly if they're acting out at home or just struggling with things at home at all. So providing chunks of time where they are physically engaged, outside if they can. I know that for some parents, safety is an issue in terms of just letting them go outside. When I was a kid, at 5 years old, I was up the street. There'd be 3 hours of just pure play, and that actually is probably what has been the most foundational, healthiest thing that happened to me as a child, is my parents allowed me to go out and play and be in nature and explore the world, and that's I'm so grateful for that. So if you can, or you could go to a playground where it's a little more contained area, or if you have a fenced in backyard or whatever, just really just be like, okay, this is outside time. If they can't go outside, there's so many things that I always send my parents home obstacle courses ideas, and you can use your furniture. You don't need special equipment to make an obstacle course in your house. You can do all sorts of things, and get the kids really moving their bodies in all sorts of ways and problem solving. So it's working on all sorts of skills. So just allowing them to get the movement. And if you see them kind of getting riled up, um, I just had a client the other day, a 3-year-old, who came into the clinic, and it's not a huge room, but it's got some equipment. It's got a swing and a little trampoline and a tunnel and some cushions and stuff. And he went absolutely berserk. Like, he was just like flailing all over the place. And I asked the mom, I said, has he run around at home? Has he been playing? No, he's just been on the iPad. And she was getting angry at him for behaving like that. I said, you know what? He's showing me that his body really, really needs some movement. And I said, when you see this at home, give him an outlet. Like, I actually modeled how to play with him in a really intense way. Like, we ran around and played chase, and I did some tumbling and he would follow along. Like, we did all these like things together. It's so actually playing with your kid, and he was so happy. Like, that energy, that wild explosive energy, got very focused when I started playing with him. So I know that may it's hard for parents. They've got a lot going on. But even if you did that for just a couple minutes, you're connecting with your child, you're showing them that you see that they have a need, and let's get some of this energy out. Let's get some movement. So,
And that's beautiful, Rebecca, because and that just to share a little quick story, even for our son, he's now a teenager, he's 14, but ever since he was 6, because being, a sensitive kid and being highly into it, he always did have carry a lot of energy, which I know a lot of parents have talked to that their children do. One of the things that we've done, and even still now, even for older, is he runs track. And we keep him out in sports and activities. So even if your child is older, just encouraging them to move their body in that way, because even like we were just talking about, even for adults is important. Some adults don't even realize that the more you move, the more you're moving that energy and the better, like you said, more focused and the better you can feel. So I just want to share that that's really important. And that's been a beautiful thing for our son, is just like keeping him running and keeping him out in nature and keeping him moving. So that's wonderful suggestions.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's lots of activities for. I mean, if you're not going to be the parent to like rough and tumble with your kid, you can put them in gymnastics, or you could, or just take them to the park. There's a lot there for them. And you just said something. Oh yeah, just a reflection when I was writing the book. You get writer's block. It's a real thing. And I literally, and this should have been part of the forward, I would go out for a run or a walk in nature, and it was like it all channeled right in. And that's part of that. These kids, particularly highly intuitive kids, it's almost like the antenna, the receiving antenna isn't going to work unless we're moving our bodies, and that it works really well. That's when most of my inspiration for the book came through, was when I was moving. And I would always take my phone and I would just record it. I would voice record it and then come back and start typing. And writer's block over. Like, I think about all my first graders that, "Oh, I don't know what to write about," and, if I had known this more, just be like, "Okay, let's, go down the hall, get a drink of water, let's do some things over here," and see if that was, that would be something to help improve their ability to, foster the process of writing, or coming up with ideas, or whatever it is that they're working on. So,
Yeah, and that's beautiful, Rebecca, because you're right, because there is a connection between movement and creativity. Moving
yeah,
that energy, it does bring it in, and so it does open up that channel to receive more when you're moving your body and moving that energy. And then actually, I was just going to read to you in the chat. Jasmine said, "I was going to say it may be the reason why exercising does so much wonders for me. I'm also sensitive and intuitive, and I'm getting surprised how much exercise I need to feel balanced." Also almost daily. And nature is also my way of balancing myself. So all what you said makes sense for me too. And it's adult. I can share from. I think it is so important, especially when you are a sensitive person. Every morning, and my husband's here, he knows that I go for a nature walk when I can. I'm out walking in nature. I call it my meditation walk first thing in the morning after I drop my son off for school, because I found that it's like when you move your body, it does. It just opens up. You feel more grounded. You feel more connected, and your energy. You can work with it better, and you just receive more. So that's beautiful.
absolutely. And Jasmina, the absolute, like, in terms of like actually getting a real workout, and I talk about it in the book some. There's some specific movements that really create a chemical environment in your body and brain that creates more, brain cohesion, more focus, attention, groundedness. And so when you're doing like a workout, you're really using your muscles. That's one of the things we talk about heavy work, which is basically activating the muscles. Pushing, pulling, lifting. I have kids even just do chair push-ups or whatever. It 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 creates an environment in your body that is very regulating, very calming, very focusing. And so, not only, just for the learning, but also to be a receiver of information as you're going through your day. If you're an intuitive, to be more, to be more in tune with that. You're just kind of like tuning yourself better. So.
So Rebecca, because that is so powerful. And then like what you're saying about how translating it to the classroom, what are some, I don't know if we have any teachers here. We've had a few more people join. Um, what are, what suggestions, just some simple exercises a teacher or a parent or movements that could be incorporated that could help the child, because this does help to like you said, focus them in the classroom. It brings them back to center. What are some suggestions you give to teachers for simple movements they can incorporate that may be able to be used at school or at home?
Right. In terms of like sort of brain break type of things, the teachers are familiar with that. The two types of, well, I do three things. I recommend heavy work. So, you're any kind of, we can do table push-ups, we can do chair push-ups. We're using our muscles. We're activating the proprioceptors in our joints that creates the chemistry that just gets us calm. And I have a bunch of activities in the book, but also brain gym, which is any kind of cross-lateral activity. It basically opens up the neural pathways on both sides of the brain so they're connected to each other. That we tend to have more of a dominant side of the brain where it's a little bit more on than the other, and different, and then there's like different parts of the brain that sometimes are a little bit sleepy and and not really activated as much. But so doing brain gym activates everything in your brain, and so it kind of gets you all online and ready and focused, so everything works better. So the most common brain gym activity is like doing cross crawls like this. Now for kids, I always start with just touching with the hand. A lot of times, a lot of our kids, they don't have the coordination, and they all want to touch the same side. Crossing the midline is really hard for them, which is a sign that they need it. So we start, doing something like this, or even just like, this kind of thing. It's the same thing, or even, doing an activity where you're switching like this, and because that's even just sitting at their desk, they can do this. It's much harder than it looks. I've practiced a lot. um so those are just some simple little things. And then in the book I talk about, especially for younger kids, crawling activities. Crawling is, I mean, a lot of, parents are often like, oh, my kid went from, sitting to walking, and they totally skipped crawling. Well, crawling is super, super, super important on so many levels. I mean, it's like foundational for, academic skills. Basically, it's a really important part of our development in terms of learning. So there's all different kinds of activities you can do with that. And then again, with these younger kids, when you're transitioning, from the carpet to the doorway or whatever, okay, we're all gonna and, this table, or these kids, you're going to bear walk to the door, or you're going to bunny hop. So you're activating more muscles than just walking, so you're incorporating it into what you're already doing. So
Yeah, that's helpful. That's good, because I like what you're saying about the crossing the body, that technique. So that activates the entire brain. So, and that brings more focus and clarity. That's a simple thing, but it's a big thing.
Yeah, I actually have, ask teachers to do it every time before they're doing testing, like do it every day. So, because it really does help their testing, their ability to sit for a longer period of time. And then I teach the kids to do heavy work during the testing in their chairs, so they're not disturbing anybody. And the third thing I teach is breath work, because breath work can also be very helpful in just getting, everything focused and calm again.
And see, I love what you're saying, because this is for younger kids, but I just keep hearing that this is And this is why you have to write your next book, Rebecca, for older, because
Yes,
I think this translates to anybody, because even older
yes,
kids taking a test, if they're doing these activities that can activate the full brain, it helps with
100%.
focus
Yes.
with it. So this can be any age, really, even adult. If you,
Oh, I do it all the time.
yeah.
I definitely use these strategies, and anytime I'm feeling, off or anxious or anything, I will use these strategies, and they always work. So yes, 100%. I
Great.
just, the book, I wrote this book because I worked with in elementary school, and that's the age range that I've been used to, and it's also, I think, it's the most imperative age range, because those um, kids, I mean, like, they're still at a stage where developmentally a huge portion of their actual learning requires their bodies to move. Like, once you get to a stage, you might have other things, but they developmentally, they need to. And so, and it's such a crime that we make them sit all, I mean, it's just like 7 hours a day, and, maybe they get a 20-minute recess, and they have PE once a week, and they're 5 or 6 or 7 years old. I mean, that's such a detriment to that child. And then, then you've got frustrated teachers because they're always trying to manage, they're just managing. And it's that's not fair to anybody in that room. So
You're absolutely right. And just like what we mentioned, touched on even earlier, it's like there has been a rise in things like ADD, ADHD, and all of that. And some of this can be, it can be environmental. It can be just like what we're talking about. They're not getting enough movement, or they're not being shown how to process so that they can, just burn that energy off and focus and come back. And then they get set with a diagnosis. So things like that's why I thought when I came across your book and read it, I know it was geared toward younger kids, but it's universal. And that's why the point I want to bring out, it's for high school. It could be for parents. It's anybody can use this information. So that's why I want people to know that even though it's written and it may say for schools or for younger, just know that it can translate to any, to older and even for adults. Um,
yeah, actually, the editor of my book, she who is somebody who has done a lot of moves. She would ride her bike cross country, and she did a lot of yoga and stuff, but she was very much spending a lot of time sitting and editing at the time that she got my book. And she said it changed her perspective on herself. Like, she realized that for her to be more effective editor, she needed to get up and move her body, and just recognized how much of an impact, positive impact, that all the movement in her life had, and that she just needed to keep doing it. So
and besides just all the general health benefits for blood pressure and, just all the keeping us healthy in that way, but it's bigger than that. It really isn't how it activates the brain. So that's why it's super. And so it sounds, Rebecca, that we can have you back for another more detailed workshop of like talking through like giving specific techniques and going a little deeper for our community here, if everyone would be interested in that, because I think this is just such a powerful topic and just good for our children. So tell a little more, like how, because the beauty for those who just joined a little bit later, Rebecca is also a former teacher. So she brings such a big perspective from the occupational therapy and having been in the classroom. But what are some of the signs, if anybody is a teacher here, besides just for younger kids, they can get, kind of wired up, and even some of the older kids, but what are some other signs that you can really tell that you may need to do something different or integrate movement, that what you're seeing in the children that are
sure.
that they need to be aware of?
So many things. So for like, just being unfocused in and of itself, boredom, looking bored or putting their head down, I mean, because so we've got the kids that are wired and they can't sit still, and then we've got kids that are just like, they've checked out because they need their body activated to get back online. Kids that are acting out. Kids that are falling out of their chairs or struggling with fine motor skills, or, like there's all sorts of signs that a child just needs to get more movement, and sitting there in a chair and listening is not it's not giving them anything of what they need. So yeah, having emotional outbursts, just like ants in their pants. Once they and another one, like when you finally give them permission to move, they kind of go berserk. It's like, I've been holding this in all this time. And like the little kid I saw in the clinic the other day. So yeah, I mean, all both directions of just, low energy, disinterest, boredom, to I'm got ants in my pants, so I'm going to crawl out of my skin, I'm going to start hitting people, I'm going to start destroying, I'm going to chew on my clothes maybe, or chew on my pencil. I mean, like, those are all signs that there's just this internal engine that needs some work. So
Wow, that's good. That's helpful for people, just to hear that some of the signs, for teachers and educators out there, so they can clue into to that. It may just be a movement thing, just finding ways to incorporate more movement. But Kim put something in the chat. I don't know, Kim, you can come off of mute and mention. I like what you said.
Okay, so one thing that I know, I work for a university, a local university, and I recently received feedback from my students that their favorite thing to do in my class, right, was when they did some of the, like, I'd put them in small groups, and the number one activity that they all liked to learn about the resources on campus was they all said they love what I do. It's like an hour and a half class. So for the first 35 minutes, I send the students out to find the resources on campus and then take pictures of themselves at the resource. And then they send them all to me, and then they come back in the classroom, and each little group presents on the resource that they saw, and all of them said that was their favorite activity in the entirety of the class, or the small group work where they'd have to actually get up and change their seats in the classroom, and that's in a college environment. And so I just mentioned that because I think that this is definitely like a universal, at any age somebody can use it. And then I just put in a little quip about my son when he had gone to summer camp between first and second grade, and it was like a yoga summer yoga and inventions or something like that. Anyways, when he met his second grade teacher, on like meet the teacher day, it was still in the summer, he asked his second grade teacher, so where in the classroom can I practice my yoga? And unfortunately, she said outside at recess. But I think she really could have capitalized on that, because that little reading area that most teachers have in their classroom, that would be a perfect place to do yoga.
yeah, and so just a reflection on that. Yoga was one of the things I brought to my classrooms at all ages. And, it was one of those things I had to close the door. And so I hear where she's coming from. And it's so sad because, here your son who's interested in yoga in the second grade, you could totally capitalize on that. And it should be, that kind of thing should be a part of the regular school day.
Well, you know what I think is great is kids tend to know what they need. They know. It's just whether the adults and whether the environment is set up to listen to be
Exactly.
what they need. So I love that Kim's son was saying, where can I practice yoga? He knew he needed that movement, but it's just what you said, Rebecca, is the environment's not set up for it. But it's awareness too, because I know teachers have certain things that they do, but there's always, I think, like what you're saying, little ways that it can be incorporated throughout the routine or throughout the day.
Yeah, there are 30-second things you can do that would change the trajectory of your day if you just did them, like literally, like, class is out of whack. And this actually speaks to the highly intuitive kids. They're, I think they're all little sponges, when they're little especially. And if somebody in the room was off or sick or having conflict, it affected everyone. Everyone could feel it. And I if I sensed that there was that kind of jaggedy energy going on in the room with everybody, I would stop and I would ask them, if we had somebody specific in mind, I would say their name. But if it was just in a general thing, we would start with our hands over our heart, and we would sing the song to whoever it was that we wanted to focus our attention on. We wish you well. We wish you well all throughout the day today. We wish you well. And they would imagine a little heart bubble coming out of their hearts to the people that needed well wishing. And, it would change the entire environment. Just something simple like that. Um, so, I mean, that's a little different than movement, but just recognizing that, that they're all feeling the energy of other people, and that, it's speaking to these, especially these highly intuitive kids. They're picking up on so much, and it's like, and it's feeling like such a block to just feeling good. It's a block to learning. And so being able to have some strategies to kind of, release some of that energy, because they don't know how to do that. A lot of people never learn how to do that. So I'm glad we're having this conversation, because I'm learning how to do that. And I know, Ellen, you've been practicing those sorts of things for a long time too, as an intuitive. But
Well, and what you said, Rebecca, I love that, because like with the heart sending it out, that's energetic in moving the energy. It may not be physically, but with the kids that are empaths and that soak in and take, because you're right, it's like almost a mood flu. If you've got a room full of empathic kids and one kid is feeling one way, and and then the teachers who aren't tuned into that don't know, how to handle, but just something simple like that is moving the energy, shifting it to a more positive, focused way of handling what they're feeling. I love that, Rebecca.
I am going to use mood flu. I love that. I've never heard that before. Oh, that's a great description. Right.
Yeah, and that's what because I say that because I know that my son has come home at times, and he will, when kids are disruptive in the class, and him being a huge empath and being sensitive, that really bothers him a lot. And then he talks about how it impacts even the other kids, and so it disrupts learning. So that's why I look at it as a mood flu. It throws things off, and so if a teacher can kind of shift that, recognize it and shift it, it makes it better for everybody, the sensitive kids and the ones who aren't as sensitive. So and I know you've seen all of that, Rebecca, being a teacher. Is Jasmina or Akira, are either one of you teachers or educators?
I'm not.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Well, Kim, you work with education students, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, I work at a local university, and I teach a freshman class. It's like a seminar kind of intro to the university, and it is about them learning the resources, and I kind of consider it like an extended orientation.
Right. Oh, that's great.
I want to open, if anyone has any questions for Rebecca, just raise your hand or just come off mute. She's open to any questions that that people have.
Absolutely.
Because I think this is just such a key, important topic, and there's so much depth that we could go into. Even an hour is not is not even really long enough, but we just want to give people enough information. We can always have Rebecca. She talked to us 2 years ago and introduced this topic, but it is so important, not just for our children, but not for just the young kids, but just all the way for everyone. But I'm going to ask Rebecca, what other, since you were here last, wait, we've got a hand raised. I'll ask her, and let's have Jasmina.
Go
You can
ahead, Jen.
talk mute.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. I was just raising the hand when I can talk after you.
Oh, no, no, go ahead. It's perfectly
Okay.
fine.
No, I was just curious to know if you've seen in your classrooms that the energy could affect kids to the point of them being sick physically. Like my daughter, I joined this group because my daughter's stomach was hurting for many months, and I couldn't figure out why. And I've heard from some readings I got that she's there's negative energy that stores in the stomach, and so I'm just learning more how to deal with that. But I would just wonder if that happens to other kids too, or maybe there's other ways it could show up, like a sickness or something like that.
100%. Yes.
Okay.
100%. Yeah, that actually happened to my daughter as well. She would come home every day with a stomach ache and sleep. It was so overwhelming, the energy of being in the classroom. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a whole other conversations in terms of like providing your child with tools to managing that, or, figuring out a way. I don't know if you're even able to, I mean, there's, the way our school system is set up right now, it it doesn't really allow for space for teachers to kind of explore those topics. And so trying to change it from the inside is a big job, and I've been trying for a long time. And I don't know what would be the best thing. I mean, like here in Asheville, North Carolina, where I'm living now, I was in Atlanta for 27 years. And when I came to Asheville last fall, last in September, I noticed there were all these schools, outdoor schools. Like kids were doing all this nature-based stuff. Even when it's cold, it doesn't matter. They were doing all this stuff. And so I have clients that literally couldn't function within a regular standard classroom and a traditional classroom, and their parents, they had the means to be able to put their kids in some of these alternative schools where they're happy and they're thriving and they're moving and they're getting what they need. And those kids did get sick a lot. Like they were constantly coming home with tummy aches, headaches, that kind of thing. I mean, we do know that stress in and of itself causes, I mean, over time, it causes the breakdown of the body. I mean, the word disease is dis-ease. You're in dis-ease. You're not at ease, and that stress is really the number one, probably foundational piece for health problems in people. So, yeah, that's a challenging one. I'm so sorry that your daughter is struggling with that.
Mhm.
It,
And
it yeah. Sorry.
go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that some readers told me that I should give her, like, clear her when she comes back from school, tell her, like, put her in a bubble of light and clear her and clear the energy that's negative, things like that. So, and she could say that and teach her affirmations so she can feel safe or or clear herself and things like that.
Yeah, and
So
I've
there's
also taught young kids, how to create a bubble around themselves. They get to choose what
Mhm.
it is, and it's a nice, strong bubble that holds them in this beautiful, loving, safe space, and that they can, start their day with that bubble. And at any point in time, they can go right in and feel that bubble and feel it's nurturing, it's loving, it's safe. And really practice with them. And then they draw it, and it can have sparkles and rainbows or whatever they want to have in it. So that is a way to teach kids how to protect themselves, so they can, have that self empowerment within themselves. And it is helpful as a parent if you do know how to clear her, help her clear her energy at the end of the day. And I know, Ellen, you could probably speak more to that.
No, I'm agreeing everything with what you said, Rebecca, because, and I'll just add, Jasmine, because our son also would come home, and that's a big sign. He would come home and have to sleep after school. And we've had to, I'll go back to, we've had to change schools for him at different points. And parents should not be afraid to do that, because you have to look at what's the best environment for your child. But one of the, for highly intuitive kids, just like Rebecca was saying, charter schools, Waldorf schools, Montessori schools that give more freedom of movement, more autonomous curriculums that the kids can be involved in, can be better for children who are highly sensitive if you have the means to do that. But then, just like what you said, Jasmine, homeschooling. We've had our son even in homeschooling for a couple of years, but we've always looked at what is best for him. But he used to get stomach aches at one point. Kids can get stomach aches, headaches, like Rebecca said, stress, all of that contributes to it. But it's teaching them how to manage their energy, how to work with it. Like Rebecca, the breath work, the inner movement helps, protecting yourself, putting yourself in that bubble. So there's certain techniques that empower them to know that they can work with their energy. And it all starts in the mind with like visualization, because you're talking about energy, the visualization. So there's certain techniques, which is a good conversation, because we can have another session that goes into that more on what we can do to empower our kids with certain techniques. But movement is such a big part of this too. But yes, it sounds like your daughter's feeling the stress of the situation, and we just she needs some techniques to help her to manage that, her energy. And sometimes we've even had to go to the point of we've had to talk to our teachers to let them know that our child is sensitive, and some of the things around why he may need to sit on the outside of, he didn't like being in the groups, like sitting in the middle, because it was too much. He would be at the back of the classroom or on the periphery, or he would go to the bathroom. He's like, Mom, every class, and this is in middle school, every class I have to go take a 5-minute bathroom break just because I got to get away from all the kids and so much in the classroom. So yeah, all that contributes to it.
Yeah, that's another sign that your kids are in overwhelm. Is there, can I get a drink? Can I go to the bathroom? I need, can, or they're dying to be that person, that gets to go down to the office and take the note or whatever it is, it's just a sign that they absolutely need that. They need it. So, and I'm glad that you were able to talk to your people, to your teachers. I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
Hi, Rebecca. Sorry. I was wondering, have you tried to approach like schools with some of this information? And if so, what was how was that received?
So when I was in Atlanta, I worked in the county school system, and the main school I was in, the principal, when I published the book that was there, she was very excited about it, and she wanted to get books for everybody, and for all the teachers and all of that. But then she had a change of career and she left, and we had got a new principal. And I talked to that principal, and she sounded interested, but I think it was just like too much for her. It was like going off the beaten path. Like she just needed to focus on what she thought she needed to focus on because she was a new principal. So I was invited to like a Montessori school to present, and of course they were super excited about it, and to a Waldorf school. But to the public, this is really directed for public school, because that's where most of our kids are, and that's where that's where the problem, I mean, a lot of these issues are arising. So it would be good to really get it out there more. And that is something I can be working on too, is just getting out there and trying to connect with schools in my area here in Asheville and seeing if the school systems might be interested in this information. So,
yeah. And that's part of doing this today. And if anybody is, educators out there, and there's always Zoom meetings that you can do by Zoom, but this is a message in this book, and it needs to be out there, because it gives options, even for the public school teachers. There's little ways, like Rebecca was saying, like just certain exercises due before a test that you could have kids stand up and for a minute, 2 minutes, just do some of those cross curls or do something before they take a test. And, just to get the focusing. I think little techniques like that, if people, educators are aware of it, that doesn't take much to integrate that. And Rebecca's a wealth of knowledge. So anybody who wants her to come speak at a school or, to a group, another parent group, I'm pushing for that to happen because I think this information is so important. It really needs to be out there. Like I said, it's written toward elementary school, but it's universal. And Rebecca can talk to, any level of that for parents. So it's really powerful information.
Thank you.
Can I ask quickly, Rebecca, have you gone to any of the like traditional private schools? It's run like a public school, right? But it's a private school, like a Christian school or a
I haven't yet, but that yeah, they may have more flexibility in how they kind of run things, so that would be a good target population.
yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, this is
Rebecca, one more thing.
Mhm.
So I was going to say, I guess it would be a good idea to maybe give a copy of your book to some of these teachers to
Yeah.
kind of, and maybe kind of, kind of highlight a couple pages of like, hey, take a look at this, take a look at that. If you want to have better control of your class, just try these things for 60 seconds out of your 50-minute class, just 60 seconds out of that, and then see if it makes a difference. If it doesn't make a difference in a month, forget about it. But if it does, then go ahead and let's talk about it and let's, do more of that. So that's like an invitation to kind of get, because if one teacher has success with it, of course they're going to talk. And that could be something that can really be something that could spread like wildfire through a school.
Yeah, I
Because I'm
did.
thinking about giving that to one of my son's teachers, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, well, I will tell you, I did inspire certain teachers in the schools that I worked in, and they were using all of these strategies. But it's something that it's going to be more effective if it comes from the top. If it's like, okay, we got to
Yeah.
change, like I can just tell because, people were interested, and then teaching is the hardest job I have ever had. And I think it's one of the hardest jobs in the world. It's just so much. And so some teachers might be willing to try some teachers will try anything. And it's like, oh, this kid's so hard, I'll try anything at this point. But there are so many teachers that are so wrapped up in this, curriculum based, got to get it done, and we got to get them ready for the test. And that they just don't even have the wherewithal to even try something, which is sad. So I feel like, really speaking to administrators and really opening their eyes and getting them to, have an in-service. I would love to go and do an in-service with teachers to really provide some real, all of this information in an in-person way set up by the administrator. So the school is wanting this sort of thing. So, yeah.
I would say even for parents, and that's why people like this group, and then people are going to see this on the replay, give a copy to your school. Our son is now in high school. When he was at his middle school, I had given a copy of this book to the principal there and told her, take a look at this. This will be helpful, in the school and then it has the activities included, and, this is powerful information that really does need to get in at the principal level. If parents step in and help to, push this out there and say, hey, we're understanding the importance of movement for the kids, it can help to support, putting some wind underneath this topic and conversation and really getting this message out there, because it's really important for kids who are sensitive and have that energetic overload, but it's important to any child who, everybody, any child, any age, adults, that this is important. So, but I know we're coming up close to our ending time, but Rebecca, how can, if people want to, reach out to you more, how can your contact information, I'll also include it in the description when I send this out, but how can people, have this information and get in contact with you if they want to reach out to you?
So the book is on Amazon. So you can find the book there. My did you, you can contact me through email, rebeccafiscal@gmail.com.
Okay.
That would be a great way to get in touch with me. And I'm working on a Teachers Pay Teachers store. I don't know if Kim, you might be familiar with the Teachers Pay Teachers website, that just resources made by teachers for teachers, and also occupational therapists, PT, all of that too. So I'm going to have a storefront with all sorts of different interventions for teachers to be able to get there. And I'm hoping to launch that beginning of February. So I was telling Ellen, I can send that information for the Highly Intuitive Kids group once I get that up and going.
Great, because we do have educators in the group, and I'm going to just plant a little seed with you, Rebecca. Maybe if you could do some kind of I'd love to have you back where we can go a little deeper into some actual techniques, like maybe do more of like a workshop and really dive into some, some aspect techniques that people can incorporate at home or in the classroom if people are looking for more tangible, actionable things. But you're doing the teacher pay teacher, something for parents. That if you can get something together for that, I'd love to be able to share in this group, or other parents, we can help push that information out too, because this is really, it's really good stuff.
Well, thank you, Ellen.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. This hour went by quick. I know we could have gone into so much more. I appreciate your time and you coming back to the group. Is there any other final? I see Jasmina put, thank you everyone for this meeting. It was very informative. I would be interested in hearing more on the subject. So I think there would be a lot of folks that would find it very helpful, to go a little deeper on this. I love that cross crawl and some of the key, certain little things. I would love a case study to see if people did that right before a test. If teachers did that, do test scores go up?
Mm-hmm.
How would that impact it? It would be very interesting to see. There's so much you can do with all of this. So thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for everyone who attended the session today. We'll keep this conversation going. It was wonderful having Rebecca talk about it back in 2022. It's great that we've talked about it again and gone a little deeper even into the topic, and we'll just keep this conversation going because this is a foundational piece for our highly intuitive kids and just people in general. This is foundational, that the movement is so important, and how it just, it helps us. It helps us to ground, it helps us to center, it helps us to be more inspired and creative, helps us manage ourselves, our energy. It's beautiful. So thank you for writing this book, Rebecca, and putting it out.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Ellen, and for everybody who joined on today.
Great. Well, we will see everyone at the look for information on the Highly Intuitive Kids group for the next Q&A and meetup, so we can all connect and learn and share and grow together.
Thank you all. Hope to see you again soon.